Does that help Tesla? I mean, you had Tim Waltz, who's a huge jerk, right? You know.
In a world where tech giants are shaping the future, Tesla seemed invincible. This brand with ambitions far beyond car manufacturing became a symbol not only of innovation, but also of the most ambitious entrepreneur of our time, Elon Musk. But what happens when a giant starts to lose its power? What if one of the most talked about companies in the world starts to collapse before the eyes of the world, losing hundreds of billions of dollars in a matter of days?
Tesla is a peaceful company. We've never done anything harmful. I've never done anything harmful. I've only done productive things. So I think we just have a deranged, there's some kind of mental illness thing going on here, because this doesn't make any sense.
In this video, we'll explore how Tesla faced disaster. What caused the once mighty empire to start losing ground? How did Elon Musk, with his charisma and ambition, manage to get so deep into the political muck that it caused the downfall of not only his company, but also the reputation of himself?
So there are a couple of things that might be going on here. So on the one hand, it could be that just at a very basic level, Musk has quickly observed a 40% decline in sales in Tesla in Europe.
Over the past few months, Tesla has gone through one of the most painful phases of its existence. Its stock has collapsed by 80%, and the company's market value has disappeared before our eyes, minus $900 billion. And all this at a time when the company seemed invincible and Musk, as before, was the center of the world's attention.
Well, this feels more like a Tesla-only story when you look at just this fall in EV sales for them, that they're suffering across Europe, down 45% in January. The wider EV market in Europe up 37%, so rivals are catching up and performing.
How is it that Tesla, once a symbol of progress, has become the target of protests, sabotage, and boycotts? How has Musk's role in politics, his involvement in Trump's presidential campaign, and his actions as head of the Department of Government Efficiency affected the company's reputation and financial health? We dive into the details of this stunning crisis that is now looming.
Well, you will hear people over in Europe say the new Model Y, the Juniper, could be a difference maker, but that's been in that market now for more than a month. And you would think that you'd see a greater snapback if it's going to be a difference maker. Look, we could be wrong. It could be a difference maker once you get the sales for April, May, and June. But when you have a country like Norway, I think the sales were down something like 11% there. I mean, that's a very savvy EV consumer in Norway. And that's long been a strength for Tesla. Very small market, not huge volume, but I think almost all of the vehicles they sell there are electric. And they embraced Tesla long before others. And, you know, the reports there are not encouraging.
Let's not forget the global factors that are exacerbating the situation. Increasing competition from Chinese manufacturers and American giants. Tariffs that jeopardize Tesla's production chains are all eroding the foundations that previously seemed immutable. And what about the global protests against Tesla? Vandalism, boycotts, protests. The company is no longer seen as a symbol of progress, but rather as a political target for public anger. But what happens next? Is this the end for Tesla, or will the company be able to recover despite the challenges? And what kind of Musk will emerge from this crisis? An ambitious entrepreneur who brought the company back to life, or a man who went for too much and now can't deal with the consequences? Today we'll look into what caused Tesla to be on the verge of collapse, and what steps could be crucial for its future. Let's lift the veil on this biggest financial scandal, and see how all these events have affected one of the most talked about companies in the world.
Hey Diane, this investigation really just beginning, and one of the key elements will of course be the surveillance video, and investigators potentially have a lot of it to work with as they try to figure out what caused this fire. We know that surveillance footage has been turned over, including video from each of the cars, which could prove vital to understanding what happened here, because each vehicle has its own camera system that works even when the car is off, and 16 cars burned in this fire, and right now investigators don't know what caused it.
Now, at a time when Tesla is going through one of the most disruptive phases of its history, all eyes are on the company and its CEO, Elon Musk. The brand that was once a symbol not only of technological progress, but also of Musk's own personal charisma, has become the object of universal disappointment. While his cars were hugely popular and Tesla's stock was skyrocketing, Today, the picture looks very different. Musk, from whom innovation and breakthrough ideas were expected, has found himself at the center of scandal that is consuming both the company and his own reputation.
Worse than expected, 336 and 68 vehicles, 336,068 vehicles delivered in the first quarter for Tesla. For a point of reference, the street was expecting, the street account was expecting, based on analyst expectations.
One of Tesla's owners, Edward Sanchez, recently announced that he could no longer be associated with the brand, despite his long love of cars. He sold his Tesla and got rid of all 150 shares of the company that used to symbolize success and innovation to him. I can't support this anymore. I don't believe this man, Musk, will continue to run the company the way he should, he said in an interview. And this is far from an isolated incident. A slew of investors have started to get rid of Tesla stock en masse, realizing that Musk is no longer the man he used to be. Instead of being a visionary leading the company to new heights, he has become a figure of growing discontent. It's no wonder that amid the plummeting stock price, Tesla has lost an incredible $900 billion in market capitalization. With each passing day, more and more people are beginning to question whether they should join the growing number of those who are deciding to exit this company. Even US President Donald Trump, once a Musk supporter, is now trying to minimize the damage by arguing that the entrepreneur who helped America should not be punished. But his words only add fuel to the fire. Musk, who until this point was an icon of progress and innovation, has now become a polarizing figure, raising more questions than answers.
After Trump imposed those sweeping 25% tariffs on aluminum and steel imports, the European Union retaliating with tariffs on up to $28 billion of U.S. goods. Trump making it clear this isn't over, vowing to respond in kind with sweeping retaliatory tariffs early next month.
They're doing what they should be doing, perhaps, for the European Union, but it does create ill will. And as you know, we're going to be doing reciprocal tariffs. So whatever they charge us, we're charging them.
Canada also striking back with new tariffs on $20 billion worth of U.S. goods, mostly steel and aluminum, but also computers and sporting goods.
So what happened? How and why did Tesla find itself in this situation? The answer, according to experts, lies not only in the plummeting sales, but also in Musk's personal decisions that affect the entire company. Many say that Musk has recently become too involved in his political activities. He is increasingly appearing on stages as an advisor to Trump, while his duties as CEO of Tesla are clearly taking a backseat. According to analysts, his involvement in politics has not only distracted him from running the company, but also affected its image and financial results. For example, against the backdrop of his statements and actions, many customers have begun to avoid the brand, not wanting to associate themselves with a political figure they consider too contrarian. This had a negative impact on car sales, which statistically fell by 80% year-on-year.
371, most were saying 350 to 360. Now they're coming in at 336,068, production of 362,615. So for some point of reference here, you're going back to Q2, maybe Q1 of 2022 in terms of the last time that they had production this or deliveries this low for one quarter. So again, Tesla deliveries worse than expected at just over 336,000 deliveries in the first quarter. Guys, I'll send it back to you.
That's horrible. Can I just ask Phil, how about the Cybertruck? How's that doing? You got a little inventory there in the Cybertruck?
In addition, his actions as head of the Department of Government Efficiency have added new problems. Musk announced his intention to cut government spending by $1 trillion, which caused a wave of indignation among both politicians and ordinary citizens. However, such radical measures could not but affect Tesla, whose ties to government programs and subsidies were quite strong. Constant protests against its decisions led to the fact that the company's shares began to lose value, and public opinion about Tesla became more negative.
Canada, the largest supplier of steel to the U.S., slapping new tariffs on $20 billion worth of U.S. goods that are sold in Canada. And the 27 countries of the European Union imposing retaliatory tariffs on up to $28 billion worth of U.S. goods sold in Europe, including Harley-Davidson motorcycles and Kentucky bourbon. President Trump with the Irish Prime Minister visiting the White House today. The president suggesting his tariffs won't stop here, saying, "Of course, I'm going to respond." And tonight, right here, the new poll showing 56% of Americans disapprove of President Trump's handling of the economy. The number's even worse now on the president's tariffs.
Not to forget that amid political instability, the company became vulnerable to external threat. Musk, who has always prided himself on Tesla being independent of traditional advertising, has now found himself at the center of a political scandal. His public statements, often harshly criticized, have only increased antipathy towards the brand. Tesla is no longer perceived as a technology leader, but as a company primarily focused on the political connections and ambitions of its CEO. This turnaround couldn't help but affect the perception of the company by customers, who began abandoning purchases en masse.
Running around on stage with the Tesla stock price, where the stock price had gone in half. And he was overjoyed. What an evil thing to do. What a creep, what a jerk. Like who derives joy?
What's worse for Tesla, this became not just an internal company problem, but a global one. Vandalism, boycotts, and protests against Tesla became commonplace, not just in the US but around the world. The brand's cars have been targeted by activists who have expressed their displeasure with Musk's political stance. For example, in European countries such as Germany and France, protests against Tesla have become widespread. Many customers in these countries began to refuse to buy Tesla cars, believing that Musk's support for the political fight against Trump severely undermined the company's image and its association with environmental initiatives.
That's from the European Automobile Manufacturers Association. People just choosing with their wallets to not buy Teslas because of that Musk-Trump association. And actually here in London, an activist group called Everyone Hates Elon actually have been hacking bus stop signs with posters. I actually passed one yesterday. First, I wasn't quite sure what was happening, but it said the words 0 to 1939 in 3 seconds. Illusion here, 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds or something. But this poster was alluding to the start of World War II, and the image was of Musk giving that hand salute that we saw at Trump's inauguration that many have attacked as a Nazi gesture. Musk, though, has neither admitted or denied what he was doing. But we're seeing the knock-on effect of that anti-Musk anger across Europe and in terms of sales.
Now that Tesla is on the verge of huge financial losses, Musk continues to be at the center of these problems. But despite his best efforts to save face and claims that the company is sure to recover, the situation continues to deteriorate. Musk has failed to maintain his reputation as a leader, and his many missteps, from scandalous tweets to unresolved internal issues, are only exacerbating the crisis. Experts say it will take years, if not decades, for the company to recover. Instead of remaining a successful entrepreneur and innovation leader, Musk has become a vulnerable figure over whom clouds are gathering. And while investors and buyers continue to exit Tesla, Musk will fight for his reputation and the future of his company. Time will tell if he will succeed in getting the company back on track, or if Tesla will become a shining example of how personal ambition can bring down even the most successful businesses. As mentioned earlier, Tesla's crisis is not only a consequence of the company's internal problems, but also the impact of external factors such as international competition and trade tariffs. Beyond that, however, one of the most damaging components was the deterioration of the political situation in which Elon Musk himself became involved. When the question of how Musk runs Tesla came up, he found himself at the center of a political storm that began to threaten both his image and his business. The problems began with his role in the Trump administration, when Musk became a strong supporter of many policy decisions that impacted international trade and the US domestic economy.
Tesla shares have slumped by more than 9% amid a fall in sales in Europe. The electric vehicle maker posted lower sales across 5 European countries, including France and the UK. Joining us now to discuss this is CBS News foreign correspondent Remy Inocencio. Remy, why do we believe these sales are dropping? What's driving that?
Sure. Well, Errol, basically what Elon Musk has been talking about over the past, say, few months, ever since Donald Trump's election back to the White House, that has been fueling this anger, this frustration, some even say disgust towards Musk, and they're taking it out on Tesla. Tesla now feeling the pain. But because of what's happening here in Europe, Tesla sales fell by nearly half across the continent just last month, 45%.
From the moment Musk took over as head of the Department of Government Efficiency, Tesla's affairs began to deteriorate rapidly. His decision to tighten controls on government spending, with subsequent cuts and budget reductions, has caused companies like Tesla to start losing important subsidies and tax breaks that allowed them to survive in a highly competitive environment. What's more, cuts in federal service have led to the layoff of entire divisions, which in turn has created gaps in critical research and regulatory reviews related to vehicle safety. Experts believe that this aspect played a key role in Tesla facing growing problems in meeting safety standards. The tariffs imposed by President Trump have had a far more devastating impact than anyone could have predicted. American automobile manufacturers faced incredible hardships when they were forced to pay 25% duties on all imported auto parts and vehicle, which significantly increased the cost of production. As a result, Tesla found itself in a difficult position. Even though the company manufactured cars in the US, most of the components, especially batteries, still came from China and other countries. This made Tesla vulnerable to trade sanctions, which also drove up the prices of the final products.
And police in Italy are investigating possible arson after a fire destroyed more than a dozen Tesla vehicles. Elon Musk is calling the incident at a Rome dealership terrorism. This comes as Tesla has been the target of recent protests around the world.
That's certainly not all. In response to US sanctions, countries such as China and European Union countries began imposing their own retaliatory tariffs. China, which was one of Tesla's largest markets, raised its duties on Tesla products to 145% in response to Trump's tariffs. This increase hit the company hard, as much of Tesla's sales in China depended on low-cost importers, which has now become a no-brainer for many consumers. Moreover, the duty hike on Tesla has caused huge difficulties in the European Union, where the prices of Tesla cars have increased by 25%, which has become a major hurdle for many buyers, especially in low-income countries. In response to these economic challenges, Musk tried to find ways out of the crisis, but as it turned out, his approach was not effective enough. The company tried to reduce production costs through layoffs, but this only led to the deterioration of production processes and a drop in confidence among consumers. For example, the introduction of new models, such as the Cybertruck, was not as successful as expected. In 2025, Cybertruck sales dropped significantly, signaling to investors that Musk's innovative ideas don't always work in practice. This was especially reflected in models that did not meet the requirements of European and Asian markets, where safety and environmental requirements have become much stricter
over the last couple of months. But the other thing that this could potentially be is an attempt at readjustment or correction by the Trump administration, in that one of Trump's closest kind of allies and supporters, and someone who's clearly very influential in the administration, is coming out to kind of push back against the recently implemented policies. So I'm thinking, or maybe hopeful is the right word, that this might be a signal that the administration is considering walking back some of those policies.
But it's not just brand and political issues that have caused Tesla's predicament. Production chain problems and shortages of auto parts have also played a role in worsening the situation. Huge logistical problems related to trade tariffs and sanctions have made it difficult for parts to arrive, especially from countries like China and Mexico, leading to significant production delays and longer wait times for customers. Amid these problems, many potential customers began to switch to more affordable and higher quality alternatives, such as cars from BYD or other Chinese manufacturers, which quickly filled the market. But that's not all. The quality issues with Tesla cars remain unresolved as well. Recently, the company has had to deal with a number of major recalls related to the safety of its cars. Models such as the Model 3 and Cybertruck have increasingly been criticized for their poor safety record, further eroding the company's credibility. In 2025, Tesla was forced to recall around 70,000 vehicles in the US alone after a number of incidents where the cars mistakenly failed to recognize objects on the road and started braking at too late a stage. The move, while necessary to fix the problems, was another blow to the brand's reputation.
We have accomplished more in 43 days than most administrations accomplished in 4 years or 8 years, and we are just getting started.
He praised all the domestic actions he has taken so far on immigration,
and I deployed the U.S. military and border patrol to repel the invasion of our country.
And spending cuts.
We are draining the swamp. It's very simple.
Of course, Musk continues to claim that Tesla can recover from the crisis and perhaps even regain its former glory. However, despite his best efforts, it will be extremely difficult to regain the trust of customers. Musk has become a polarizing figure in his own right, and this is reflected in the brand. In 2025, his political statements, including his support for former President Trump, have further divided public opinion of Tesla. Amidst how quickly consumer preferences are changing and the world is becoming increasingly concerned about environmental sustainability, Musk, who was once the model of a successful entrepreneur, is now more of a figure threatening the brand's image.
Teslas are being torched across the country. Dealerships shot up and set on fire. Spray paint to vandalize and make a statement. People in Southern California are getting notes on their Teslas, calling them complicit Nazis for owning electric cars.
Tesla's future depends on whether the company can get back on its feet after this financial disaster and political crisis. Investors are watching Musk's every move, and this may be a defining moment for the company. Plus, given the stiff competition and economic instability, Tesla will have to rethink its strategy and perhaps even change its image to get back in the game. However, it's still hard to say what steps will be able to lead the company to recovery, and whether it will be able to regain the trust of consumers and investors is still questionable. Against the backdrop of this crisis, it is unlikely that anyone can give an accurate prediction for the company's future. What will happen to Tesla? Will Musk have to make difficult decisions and make changes in his strategy? Or will the company continue to sink in a wave of political and economic scandals? Only time will tell, but one thing is already clear. The future of Tesla, as well as Musk himself, hangs in the balance.